Sheila Armstrong found a disturbing trend while researching for her master's degree in 2013. Pennsylvania had the most unequal funding formula of all 50 states. Then she discovered that poorly funded schools were primarily located in low-income areas, like the school her sons attended in North Philadelphia.
I started this fight because of my boys, my two boys, and because they targeted my son's school to be one of the schools closed. Me being the plaintiff is me putting my life on the line for the children of Pennsylvania.
Armstrong worked for a more equitable funding formula, and revised formula was passed in 2016 by the Basic Education Commission. But Armstrong knew she had to take action when the Pennsylvania Assembly gutted the bill by only applying the equitable formula to new education funding.
Everybody agreed that this funding formula was fair and it was just. The unfortunate part is we still have legislators in Harrisburg that wrote the legislation up where only new revenue get applied to the actual funding formula.
In Pennsylvania, lawmakers have really, argued that that's the product of local control. Our school systems are run by local school districts, and thus, it's their prerogative for wealthy districts to spend as much as they want.
Only 6% of all funding was run through the new formula in 2017. So the quality of an education still depends on one thing: where you live. A look at the demographics makes the correlation to race clear. Lower Merion School District, just outside of Philadelphia, spent over $28,000 per student in 2015. Just 4 miles away sits Overbrook High School in the Philadelphia School District. OpenGov.org reports that the Philadelphia School District spent less than $14,000 per student that same year. In a classroom of 30 students, that equates to almost half of $1 million difference per classroom. The Lower Merion School District student population is almost 80% Caucasian and just over 20% minorities. The Overbrook High School student body is 99.7% minorities. Attorney Michael Churchill at the Public Interest Law Center in Philadelphia is helping Armstrong, other parents, and 6 school districts across the state fight a lawsuit that challenges Pennsylvania's inequitable method of funding.
It means that how good an education you get depends on your zip code. It means that if you live in a community that doesn't have any wealth, you don't have good schools. You have much higher class sizes. You may not have computers. There's not enough textbooks. There's no librarians. In Philadelphia, they went for several years without nurses in every school. It's a complete failure to provide for the needs of the students.
The funding shortages not only impact student learning, but can also create health risks.
So if we have children with asthma and buildings that are not maintained properly because of a lack of funding, and there are no nurses in the building every day full time, then we are creating a catastrophe waiting to happen. Bryant Elementary School is a school in West Philadelphia where a student was having a respiratory issue all day. When her father finally came and took her to the emergency room, the asthma attack led to her death. The district claims that the attack did not happen during the school day, but how would they know? There was no medical professional there that day to evaluate that student.
As I became a plaintiff of the school funding lawsuit, what drove me crazy in sitting in the courtroom is hearing the other party argue about if education is a right. And that angered me because of the fact that how can the state of Pennsylvania really argue that children don't have a right to education system that is adequate, equitable, and fairly distributing the funds equally and right.
The children don't have access to after-school programs that their parents can afford. They don't have access to before-school programs that their parents can afford. They don't have access to healthy meals that can impact the type of day that they're going to have. They don't have access to adequate staff in the building that can create the climate that they need to learn.
What this lawsuit is arguing is not that wealthy districts shouldn't be able to spend lots of money on students, but rather that the state should be providing a base amount that's enough, that's adequate for students in Overbrook and in other struggling districts to have an adequate education.
A bit shafted. It's disappointing how the U.S. has such a giant divide between lower and higher income students, and it's just growing every year. Friends from Central don't have the working library, or the classrooms don't have enough desks for them to sit down, so they have to stand up and take notes.
You wouldn't want to go to a school where you're not getting the right education, or you're not getting the right tools, or like nobody, I mean, you're not getting what every other school getting. It's not a learning environment.
I have a scripture assigned to all my work, and for this work is Hosea 4:6, which says, "My people perish because of lack of knowledge." Okay, and that's what I see in these communities. It's because of the failing schools is the reason why we're having failing communities, failing societies, failing everything, because at the end of the day, education is the key to everybody's future.
Education is key. Like, we want to learn as much as they want to learn. We want to learn what they want to learn. We want the same education.
You matter. You matter, you matter. But that's what we got to start stating to everybody. We all matter, regardless of what situation we in. We supposed to care for one another. We are responsible for one another, okay? Regardless of what race, nationality, or color you are. Okay, we are. You know, we're all God's children, as they say. I believe I am, and I want to be spoiled by it.
Unequal school funding is a national problem, and a U.S. Commission of Civil Rights referred to it as a modern form of segregation, stating, "Although the United States Supreme Court ruled in 1954 that public education is a right that should be available to all on equal terms, the long-standing and persistent reality is that vast funding inequities in our state public education systems render the education available to millions of American public school students profoundly unequal." While there are people fighting for fair funding, there is a lot of progress yet to be made.